I'm starting to wonder, Ashley, is the anxiety what keeps you and I out of depression? Is that why we're not morose, blubbering vampires?
It could be. It definitely could be. Anxiety is my antidepressant.
The Articulate Coven is the original, unofficial fan podcast and community for Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, The Vampire Chronicles, The Lives of the Mayfair Witches, and the Immortal Universe from AMC and AMC+.
Welcome to the Articulate Coven. We are your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. Ashley, I'm on the road this week. I do not have new artwork, but this is a lovely backdrop.
It's a very bright room.
Yeah, right. It's like way brighter than my normal. I like
right?
all low lights, but I don't. I've got a light for my desk that I use to give myself a little extra wash, and I don't have any of that in this hotel room. So I was like, I'm just going to turn on all the lights. Just
coming right at you.
All of the lights. Anyway, folks, it is a book club episode. We are in the middle of discussing Blood and Gold from Anne Rice. We are the unofficial Anne Rice fan podcast and community. We discuss all of the Lives of the Mayfair Witches, the Vampire Chronicles, as well as the TV shows that have been made based on those. The upcoming Talamasca series in 2025 from AMC. We're going to be talking about that too. But right now, we're talking about books. Talking about Marius's book in particular.
Marius's book. Poor Marius. God bless.
God bless indeed. God bless indeed. Okay, the first thing, and we're just going to jump right into this, in case you are not a big book reader and you're like, this isn't for me, don't worry, we got movie nights in between these episodes. We just did Let the Right One In.
Oh, it was so good.
Weird little movie, but so good. Ashley and I both were super excited to finally watch that one. Coming up, for something completely different, Underworld is our next discussion. So I'm excited to get into that. But let's just jump into this, because there's quite a lot in this part. We're talking about kind of the second section of Blood and Gold, once Marius actually begins to tell his story. And I have said we ought to break these down by relationships. And for this section, I thought we should really focus on Marius and Mayel.
Yes, and I also think that breaking this down into relationships just proves what an absolute dumbass Marius is. It just seems such a dumbass. It just seems more obvious that he makes the most ridiculous choices. When I'm reading it and thinking specifically about these relationships.
There are so many things in this one in particular, and don't get me wrong, Marius isn't the only one that makes bad choices, right?
No.
I'm gonna have several fingers to point in Mayel's direction as well.
yeah, all of them. And the fact that these two just carry on for centuries, just kind of like with this love-hate relationship, is just...
It is really something.
I don't fuck around with people I don't like that much.
Okay, you know what, though? If it did sort of... It mirrored for me in this reread. It has mirrored for me. We talk a lot about how Marius and Lestat have so much in common. And it's one of the reasons why they like each other so much, but it's also one of the reasons why they've never really been companions, right? They never lived together. I think that Mayel is Marius's Armand.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
They're eternally connected. They're constantly in rotation around each other in social circles, and yet genuine dislike there that is never going to be overcome, probably.
No. And then, and the fact that so much of the genuine dislike is for Mayel wrapped up in religious nonsense is just even richer. It's just Lord God, my Lord, bless us. Yeah.
So when Marius first starts his story here, ostensibly, you'd spend some time on your origins. You're talking to a complete stranger. But I love, and Anne does this in all of her books, she just has very little time for rehash. She's like, previously on Marius, fancy Roman boy got made a vampire, got sent to Egypt. Now for the good stuff. Let me tell you the stuff that I haven't previously told Lestat, and you've already read.
Yeah, let me tell you the stuff that I haven't already written yet. Here we go. On to the new stuff. Yeah, when we had somebody in the group talking about wanting to skip some of the books and read sort of out of order, and we were talking about like the benefits of that and the not benefits of that, especially because the book in question for that was Queen of the Damned.
Queen of the Damned.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to skip that one, I think, and kind of know what's happening in the world in which our vampires are living. But she does do that quick recap, but also if you haven't read the previous book, you do get this very like sanitized like recap, and it doesn't make it sound as interesting as like Marius's adventures in Pandora and Marius's adventures in the Vampire Lestat.
Yeah, I mean, Pandora is another one, especially. Now, obviously, she gets more time in the rest of this book, but in this section, I mean, she's so little she's mentioned. Now, it's like, I guess it's like one of Taylor Swift's ex-boyfriends, right? Like, he writes about her all the time. He's like, and I constantly thought of Pandora. But they lived together for 200 years, and he basically tells Thorne nothing about it.
Yeah, no, he's like, you gotta go read a different book for that story.
Let me tell you about the time I pissed her off so bad and we broke up forever. You know, I'll tell you that a little bit, but like that's about all he gives.
Yeah, and yeah, it's you miss a lot of the story that you already know. Which I guess that's fine because you already know it, but like if this was the first book you picked up, you'd be missing an awful lot of Marius' story.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, and it also, I mean, I guess it makes sense because this book is written from Marius's perspective, but I did think over and over again, especially in this section, it felt like we have to remember that this is from Marius's perspective because he's leaving out this viewpoint and that viewpoint and these facts and those facts.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Well, I mean, just like with any of these books, I mean, how reliable are our narrators? How reliable are any of us? I mean, anything that we tell is from our perspective. I mean, it is what it is. It's not like we're like, I feel like the other person involved in this probably felt like this when I did X, Y, and Z. Like, that's not how we tell stories.
Of course you're right. But I think all the time about when you and I were recording an episode of I think it was in season 2 of the TV show Interview with the Vampire, but I had the realization that there's nothing to say that the things that Lestat says in all the later books are actually true. Like, we think about how Interview with the Vampire is, unreliable narrator. But we never think about the fact that none of Lestat's stuff is necessarily canon. It's just his statement on it, right? No.
Right.
Anyway,
it's his version of it. I mean, yeah, no, it's his version of it. That's one of the things that's interesting about these books to me is getting to hear the same story from different perspectives. I enjoy that. I think that I like to hear multiple sides of a story. I think that's fun, like you kind of get a better understanding of what really went down, number one, when you hear more than one perspective. But number two, it makes everything so much more interesting, and it makes you understand the motivators, like what's motivating these characters a lot better. And I think it's one of the reasons why we can't put these fucking books down after, 40 years.
Well, and it's why we can take one of these books that I don't even think is the best book in the series, and we can break it down over 4 or 5 episodes and like have plenty to talk about because there is so much there. And again, like I've said it before, but I just want to remind you, Anne is not just genre fiction. This is high literary work. Even her lesser novels are just you could write whole college courses on this stuff, folks. So anyway, thanks for diving into this with us. All right, so the first thing that we get to really is he takes the king and queen to Antioch, and he talks about his time there a little bit. I had sort of forgotten this section, honestly. He stays in the shadows. He doesn't, I always think of Marius as living in the middle of the mortals. It's one of the reasons why he stands apart from so many of the other vampires. But to start with, he was crawling around like a creepy crawly too, hiding in the corners. He's got a great line, though. He says, there were brilliant men to be spied on and wonderful things to be heard. This is one of the reasons why, even though he is a doofus, even though he is incredibly self-centered and blind to his own issues, Marius is one of my favorite characters in the book. It's because he is so curious. He always wants to learn,
Yeah. And I am that way. I am like, oh, part of it's, undiagnosed ADHD hyperfixation, but yeah, no, I'm always like, I'm always wanting to learn about something new. It's why I read and listen to podcasts and watch documentaries and things like that. I'm always seeking more information. And so that's something I do love about Marius, his curiosity and and I do like that he likes to be around people. I do like that he likes to plant himself in the midst of mortal life and live amongst people. He doesn't deny himself that companionship. And I think that that's really it is very different from the other vampires. Also something he frowns upon for other vampires to do.
Right.
I mean,
he's pretty big though, Ashley, on telling you something not to do and then immediately doing it himself.
And then immediately doing it himself. Yeah. That is definitely he's that kind of mentor.
So much in this book, even like.
Yeah.
Okay, and we meet Pandora here. He re-meets Pandora. Obviously, they knew each other in their mortal life. And as many of Marius's relationships are, here he is in love with a too young person. When he first proposes marriage to Pandora, she's
like 11?
12? Yeah, 11 or 12.
Yeah,
a precocious
11 or 12?
preteen.
Yeah. Well, preteen. We're giving preteen a lot of there. But yeah. He's
She's a little girl is the point. And don't get me wrong, a mature and intelligent and inquisitive one. Interesting, compelling, noteworthy, not to marry. And I know this is ancient Rome and et cetera, but like Marius is a creep and he's got a type, y'all. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he definitely has a type and it is underage.
But, okay, so Rome, she's had her issues in Rome with her family, and she's escaped to Antioch, and then they re-meet. Of course, he's now a vampire. She doesn't know it at first, but he's got a line here when he's first talking about her. He says he was looking at her, saw her from a distance or whatever, and immediately flooding my thoughts with impossible desires. That's the way that he describes his feeling for Pandora. And I thought about... And honestly, it's very fitting with Marius and Pandora because they argue all the time as well. Mm-hmm. But, like, that's how I feel about Kelly. That's how I feel about my wife. Like, she's my best friend. I don't like spending time with anyone more than I like spending time with her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, I think dirty thoughts about her all the time, right? So, like, filling my mind with impossible desires. Like, I want to take her everywhere. I want to watch every movie with her. I want to discuss every philosophical thought with her. The things that happen in my life, I think to bring to Kelly first, right? Like, anyway, Anne captures that kind of all-encompassing, like, relationship, but it's more than that. It's a partnership, I guess. And I think the reason why she does that so well is because she and Stan had it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's something to be said, too, about, like, when you can share, like, creative passions, too. I think that's something a little extra that I think she and Stan had, too, with that she, like, him being a poet and a painter and all of that, they got to share creating together, which is really cool.
Yes. Yeah. And, I mean... Nobody put her husband on the spot more than Anne did. Her later books are full of his poetry. Yeah. She was a big fan as well as in love with him. Anyway, I just thought what we get here of the relationship with Pandora, even though, look, man, like, no matter how you feel about someone, it's difficult living in the same space with someone for your whole life, right? Like
well, I mean, 200 years.
They don't pick up the trash or whatever.
Yeah, that's why I always say live with someone first, because they may have habits you cannot live with, which include the thermostat.
The thermostat's a big one. What do you think about Pandora's idea that Akasha willed them together? So Marius, at this point in the story, very much thinks of Akasha and Inkle as almost like hollow vessels. Akasha spoke to him to free them from Egypt, but she's never spoken to him since. They've not had any interactions, and at this point, he doesn't even really think of her, I think, as a as a being. And yet here Pandora comes in with her memories of a previous life and the blood religion of Akasha and Inkle. And she goes, you know, Akasha called me to you. You need companionship. This is, you need someone to help you bear all of this burden. What do you think of that?
I mean, I think that could be a thing, because he does need companionship. He does need someone that he can share that burden with. She's literally the only one that he shares them with, and eventually starts to resent her for it too, which is really wild. That you know, she shares and taking care of their crypt, of their shrine. You know, she dresses them and she does Akasha's makeup, and she, you know, cares for them truly in a way that Marius doesn't. You know, he continues to do the things she did, but he wasn't doing those things first, you know. And I think that, I mean, I do think there could be something there, something to be said for that. And I do think that because Pandora does have those like qualities that are kind of, you know, preternatural about her before she was a vampire, you know, memories of a past life, and she's seen some things that are kind of strange and unusual, and so I do like that idea. I like that Akasha could see in him a loneliness and a longing, that he needed some sort of companionship, someone that was his equal, worthy of him and also worthy of them.
I think it parallels some of the things that happened later in the book chronology anyway. Like in Queen of the Damned, the way that Akasha speaks to Lestat even before they meet physically that second time, she speaks to Lestat when he first comes to Marius, you know, and compels him. I think she compelled him as much as his own bravado to grab the violin and play her music, you know, to awaken her. And then, slight spoiler, a similar thing happens with Amiee, the very origin of the species, in the later trilogy. So I do think there is these vampires aren't a hive mind, but they're connected in such a direct way that I do think there is not a fatalistic, but like an orchestration that is sometimes happening among them. You know, I mean, think about. Well, I think Akasha Marius compels some of the vampire violence in Queen of the Damned, not just with her actions, but with her mind. You know.
Well, and Marius even, I mean, they use each other to do things that they can't do. Like Marius plants images of Pandora, you know,
in everybody else's mind to see if
everybody else's mind to try to you know, so they know what she looks like, so that exactly, because he can't reach out to her. So if they're thinking about her, maybe she'll hear them. You know, it's
well, okay, the next note that I have is Marius's line after they had started to fight the first time over Akasha. Honestly, Pandora sort of suggested that the blood religion might be the way to go, and he's like, no, what are you talking about? And they kind of get mad, and he wanders off, and he avoids her for a while. He says, this need, meaning his need for her, his like complete devotion to her, and the preoccupation that he has with her in his mind, this need is the thing that keeps me at a distance, away from the scrutiny of her eyes. Okay, here I think is like the thesis of who Marius is. Marius's pride is such that he cannot let anyone in because they then could have some authority over him. Like, it's literally, I have to be the ruler not only of myself but of everyone else, and so I have to keep you all at bay. If he had let Lestat live with him, I mean, yes, maybe Inkle would have crushed his head, but probably Inkle would have just went back to sleep, and you could have talked Lestat eventually into stopping bothering Akasha, and they could have lived in peace and learned from one another, except then Marius would have needed him eventually, and at some point Lestat would have had power to say, well, if you don't do X, I'll leave, you know? Yeah. And so Marius just throws him out.
Yeah, go on, it's like it's like ending a relationship because you're afraid it's going to end eventually.
Yes. Okay. Not to make this whole episode about my wife, But I did that to Kelly early when we weren't even technically dating yet. We were just seeing each other, and I was like, man, she is so great. Like this is going places, and I didn't want a relationship. Yeah. So I was just like deuces, and like I was pretty cruel about it. For a long time we joked that I Grovered her, near far. It was not cool. She made me remember it every August for a while. She's mostly gotten over that now,
and rightly so.
She won. I just remind her all the time, like, I came back begging. I was wrong. That was a stupid thing. Marius
that was a very Marius
He just waits
move.
300 years. Yeah. Yeah, he just waits too damn long. Okay, so Marius and Pandora break up the first time, effectively. And honestly, for good. They come together at different times throughout history, but they never really lived together in this same way again. Why did they break up? It's mostly because Marius was too much of a philosophical bitch to do what he needs to do to protect himself and those that he loves. And Ashley, how many tragedies in Marius's long life would have been solved if he just did what he needed to do instead of philosophizing about it?
Yeah, and raking yourself over the coals, feeling guilty about what you had to do when, like, you're a fucking vampire, bro. Like,
you
like,
eat people
morality
every
is real.
day.
Yeah, morality is real iffy with you guys anyway. So, like, you had to kill some vampires, and now you got the big sad about it. What the fuck, dude?
And so the issue comes over Christian vampires, these serpent-worshipping vampires who say they serve Satan and they're, evil and et cetera, et cetera. They come to see him to find out information about what he knows about the, ancient mother and the power that he has. And don't you want to come join us? You're so old and powerful, you could help us, blah, blah, blah. He's like, not no, but hell no. And fine, we flush them, we kill them, but then he mopes for like 6 months, and she's like, that's not going to be all of them, right? Like, this is going to happen again.
Right, we're going to have to do this repeatedly throughout time. And it's true. He has to fucking deal with that shit repeatedly throughout time, and it never goes well.
It is like that, this fight just recurs without Pandora there, but like he has to keep fighting this fight over and over again. Like it harms Mael, it harms Avicus in this section, it harms Armand obviously later, and Marius. And then from Armand's harm, how many dozens of our own characters in these books, right?
Yeah, well, that little murder gremlin has really fucked up a bunch of people's lives.
If he had just lived for centuries in Venice painting with Marius, none of the rest of the... Like, Claudia would be alive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, maybe not, because Claudia was a tragic figure in her own right.
Well, and Claudia might not have even happened.
Precisely. Like, because Lestat's whole thing wouldn't have gone the same way. He might never have gone to Louisiana. Anyway.
No.
This entire universe of stories is again and again and again and again impacted by Marius's inaction. And so... Like, I am 100,000,000% Team Pandora in this fight.
Oh, I mean, obviously I am. I'm a big Pandora fan. And she's fucking right here. And I'm glad fuck this guy. What a dick. Ugh.
Right before she leaves.
Also, I could not just live with someone who was that maudlin all the time. Like, I can't be around... like that energy constantly. I need to be around someone who, I mean, I don't mind. You have your days, obviously.
Everybody's
but
blue.
Shit.
Right. Everybody gets blue.
Yeah. But I just can't be around someone who, like, is negative, has, like, a constant kind of, like air of negativity to them. That really is a bummer for me.
Well, and I hate a one-upper, too. Like,
Pandora,
God. They have a fight, and so Pandora does the adult thing and removes herself from the fight. She's like, hey, man, like, let's just both cool down.
Let's take a break.
And is across town. 2 days she does this, and that motherfucker's like, I'm going to move, actually.
2 days out of 200 years. 2 days out of 200 years. I'm going to pack up all my shit. Including these other vampires. Yeah, I'm going to move all this shit. Like, you got to work hard to move that much shit in Antioch in this time period. Fuck me.
Yeah. Which, I mean, to me, and I think Marius eventually knows it too, but like, that's why she never looked for you, homie. Not really. Like, you absolutely established the boundary under which this relationship can function. Either you do exactly what I want to say, what I want at all times,
or I'm leaving.
I will leave you. Yeah, and it's like, no, we're not going to build a life together under duress. Thanks very much, actually.
No, thank you, sir.
Obviously, that doesn't work out quite so well for Pandora long term either, but...
No, she does not make good choices.
Right before she leaves, though, the house, she tells him, don't make a religion of reason and logic. And again, I think that's a good encapsulation of what's wrong with Marius. Marius is so certain of his own intelligence and his own ability to reason that he's just sure in every circumstance. Well, this is happening. Well, I know what to do out of it now.
Yeah.
And I personally just like live from a place of uncertainty. Here's what I think. Yeah. Here's the information that I have.
That's what I hope.
Right? Yeah. I mean, like,
and
look,
anxiety. I don't think this man's ever had a moment of anxiety. My God.
But maybe. Anyway, I'm starting to wonder, Ashley, is the anxiety what keeps you and I out of depression? Is that why we're not morose, blubbering vampires?
It could be. It definitely could be. Anxiety is my antidepressant.
That's a t-shirt. That's a t-shirt right there. Anxiety is my antidepressant.
Jot it down.
That's real good. Oh my goodness.
We were doing a show the other day. We do this really cool. This is completely off topic, but it's kind of funny. It reminded me of us podcasting. But we do this young storytellers thing. It's like a nationwide program. It's very cool. One of our local elementary schools, they take kids that are interested in writing and in theater and movies, and they write a 5-page screenplay, and then they bring in actors to perform the screenplays. It's so much fun. It's the most fun. So they're all like 5th graders. So it's really creative, funny shit. Well, one of the scripts was completely out of order. Like, it had gotten stapled out of order, and we were missing a page. And like, things just went skidding off the road. It was a disaster. And I just belted out at one point during it, "We're doing it live!" And everybody died laughing. It was so funny.
That is the way to be, man. That's awesome.
We're doing it live.
I feel like that's got to be some exercise that we did in college theater, where you take a scene and you do it out of order or something. I absolutely feel like I've done that on purpose sometime. We did Christmas Carol that way. Okay.
Oh,
so
really?
This was after you had graduated, yes. But we did. I'm trying to think who was involved. It wasn't Philip Glass, but it was some composer, some like well-known composer that had done a bunch of original music for our version of Christmas Carol that we were doing.
Very cool.
We did a straight version of it that we ran for the holidays, right? But then we also did this thing called C2, where it was like out of order. And literally the order changed night to night. Like, we had pieces that would run, and it would be, I think that was like randomized at the beginning of them. Anyway, like at call, we would get notification of what
order things were going to be
running in. Yes.
Oh, that's like, very fun.
5, 4, 2, 1, 7 or whatever, you know.
Like, I like that.
And things would be dropped night to night. There would be things that you wouldn't do. And then, anyway, it was such a pain in the ass, honestly, by the time we were done with it.
Makes your brain work really hard.
I imagine it was very interesting and compelling art. Anyway, that 5th grader is onto something, is my point, Ashley.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You staple him out of place.
Absolutely. Yes, that's right. Give me all my scripts out of order, please.
There's a federal art grant for that, I promise. Okay, I have been listening to the audiobook version of this, and then with our going back and looking at the book to make notes a little bit. But I love the impression of Mael in this audiobook version. Roger Rees does something with him. Yeah. He does something with Mael's voice that Simon Vance never does in Simon's narrations. And it makes Mael like a crude and a little stupider than I think he actually is.
Interesting.
That's the way it plays in my head, but it's perfect for like Marius's version of male, you know?
Yeah.
Like this isn't male.
Yeah.
This is male as perceived by Marius and told by Marius.
Through the lens of Marius's eyes.
Yeah.
Marius who hates him. Yeah. I love it. There was one part where he was like, where they meet again and he's like, meh. I mean, I can always kill him later. I can have a conversation with him and kill him later. It's like reminded me of the Dread Pirate Roberts. Yes. Might well kill you in the morning.
But so many times in this book, Marius will have spent centuries maybe alongside Mael in some fashion, and then be like,
still wants to fucking kill him.
Yeah,
yeah. Still
every
wants
now
to
and again
kill
he
him.
thinks about it again.
Yeah, it's just like I might well kill you in the morning. So funny. He is consistent. Marius is consistent. Like we give him that credit.
How he feels about Mael, how he feels about Santino, he's 100% consistent on.
Consistent. I don't think if he's like a Taurus when they get to that point. Like I'm a Taurus, and we forgive a lot, but when we're done, we're fucking done with you.
My thighs are chapped. I'm done walking, Ashley.
I'm done with you, friend. And I don't get that way very often, but when I do, it's forever. Something really big has to happen to change my mind.
What did you think about Avicus? Avicus is introduced here with Mael. I
love this character.
I didn't say this. So Marius has escaped from Antioch, where he was living with Pandora, and he's gone back to Rome. And he's decided, it's been 200 years since I was here last. I'll be out in the open again. And he's living. Yeah. Everything's fine.
I'm a Roman. I want to live some Roman life.
Mael just shows up. He's like, "What's up, homie? You remember me?"
Friend. Hey, friend.
But he's got this guy with him, Avicus. What do you think about Avicus?
I love this character. I really like this character a lot. I think he's a good foil for Mael, because Mael needs somebody kind of rational and practical. I think they're an interesting pair going through this life together. And I really do like this character.
It's total happenstance that the two of them are together, right? Like the same thing effectively that caused Mael and Marius to hate each other forever is the thing that seems to force Avicus and Mael into this permanent relationship. Like neither one of them even conceives of leaving the other one, No,
and it's very interesting because it's not a romantic relationship at all.
No.
Like there's no there's no chemistry or anything. Like they're just kind of companions. And like I guess we do this is what we do now together. It is a very strange relationship, but I like it. And I like that that they do seem to, or at least Avicus seems to feel some loyalty and some like care for Mael, as far as like, well, I mean, we see what happens when Mael gets
injured.
Like, yeah.
But Mael is, I don't know about, I mean, he shows some care for Avicus, definitely, but he definitely shows jealousy for Avicus, right? And like possessiveness of Avicus.
And even jealousy about him for like if another person is like it is very strange. It is that kind of possessive sort of thing that they all kind of have this quality, like that they're all a little possessive of their things and their people and their companions. That is kind of across the board a pretty common thing.
Literally the last note that I had in this section, I said, Mael is such a bitch. He's so jealous that Marius will steal Avicus, that Eudoxia will steal Avicus, that Zenobia will steal away Avicus. Just get over yourself, homie. Like, Avicus has shown you he's not going anywhere. The only reason he ends up going somewhere in the end is because he gets tired of you going, "Oh, don't leave me, Avicus," I mean, again and again and again, I'm just like, God, like, I wonder, honestly, I had never wondered in the past. I'd always thought it was made perfect sense why Maharet likes Mael so much and wants him around. And in this read, I'm like, what does she see in this dude? And I have to remind myself, this isn't him. This is Marius's version of him.
Marius's version of him.
We're all
Marius's version
legion. Of him. We hold multitudes.
It's wild how committed they are to this hatred of each other. Like, this is a serious commitment to hating someone. It just is hilarious to me. Mael said, "There's nothing that is not connected with you." He shook his fist at me. It reminded me of a child. "Your own doing," I said. "From the moment you stole me from the tavern in Gaul, you brought us together. Remember that."
Okay, and so let's talk a little bit here about like the religious aspect, because once they come together here, again, centuries removed from either one of their mortal lives, and Mael in particular escaped the blood religion himself the exact same way that Marius did it.
The exact same fucking way.
And yet, he still gets mad at Marius about breaking the oaths and leaving his tribe without a blood god to bless the harvest. And I'm like...
And ruining his faith, ruining my faith in this weird blood religion.
You had confused me. You'd corrupted me, Marius.
Yeah.
Tell me, like, what is... You cannot... I mean, you can't run the liquor store that you own and then complain that I made you an alcoholic. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's not...
Right. That's not how any of this works, kids. But it is how it works for these two morons. And that's how they're going to roll through the rest of their fucking lives.
Well, and Avicus even says it right in their very first meeting. Don't be so foolish as to hate him. And
right.
I think he's saying it to Mael about Marius, but it's true for both of them. Like, listen, there's only so many of us to begin with, and the three of us specifically are literally entangled in our own narratives. And the thing about Avicus that's so interesting to me is, and Marius doesn't know it when they first meet, it sort of comes out over time, because Avicus doesn't even remember it at first. But Avicus is one of these early blood drinkers made in the temples of Akasha, maybe even made by Akasha, and it's like Marius doesn't see that circle at first. He sees something interesting in Avicus and is like, oh, I'd like to have him as a companion, but is still so like stuck in this bullshit with Mael that they can't work it out. And again, it's like, well, you live on the other side of town, and I guess we'll run into each other occasionally when there's a fight or something. But like,
and that's literally how they live for a long time.
For all of the end of Roman history,
right?
Like
for
on the other side of town,
for the entire fall of the Roman Empire, these assholes lived across town from each other. Just kind of checked in every now and again.
Yeah.
Occasionally brought each other a dead body someone needed to hide.
When they're going to leave him that first time, Marius bemoans that he can't stand the weakness of hate and the irrationality of love. I thought that was a really good line.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
the
he's
weakness
always
of hate
battling.
and the irrationality of love.
Yes. I highlighted that myself. I love it. I lived the lie. I lived it out of anger. I have lived lies. I've done it again and again. He's always battling between anger and pride. He like can't decide which one he wants to feel the most. Anytime he starts to be angry, he's like, I'm too proud to be angry. I'm too angry to be proud.
Oh man, I'm gonna buy him some of that chocolate peanut butter spread.
You got your chocolate and my peanut butter.
You see, they got it in a jar now.
Oh shit!
It's chocolate and peanut butter in a spread. You can put on, whatever. Yes.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Right? I don't even really like peanut butter out the jar, but I was like, Reese's
I'll fuck with this.
And peanut. Yeah, I could you
can have your pride and eat your anger too at the same time.
So Marius avoids the shrine of those who must be kept for a while after Mael and Avicus come to see him, because he's scared of exposing the secret and giving it away.
Right.
But he says something telling here when he gets to the shrine. When he finally gets back to the shrine, he feels bad because he's left them alone, although he realizes immediately that it's not necessary. He doesn't have to come. He could go months and months on end, and it won't be a problem. Nobody will care, including Akasha and Inkle. But when he gets there, he kneels and he prays to Akasha, and he says, in all my years with Pandora, I never prayed like this, but now I had Akasha all to myself. That is it. And I've already said it. Marius needs to be in charge. And the beauty, honestly, of his relationship with Akasha and Inkle is that they are silent partners, right?
Yeah.
Like they occasionally
no one's
are
going
a
to
resource.
argue with you.
No, like they'll save him on occasion, or she'll let him feed, or whatever. But whatever Marius believes is all that needs to be talked about, because he's the only one talking. And anytime he brings somebody else into the relationship, then he's going to have to compromise in some way, and he's just not interested.
It never goes the way he wants it to go either. Whenever he introduces someone into this situation where they're going to meet Akasha and Inkle, it never goes the way he wants it to go. Like it's always there's always something that happens that he's not in control of, like literally every fucking time. So this like very selfish kind of he's such an elitist too. Like it's like he thinks he's the only one worthy of this task as well. It's very interesting. He's so weird. He's such an interesting character. When he was talking about Rome, the capital of Rome moving to Constantinople?
Yes.
And he says, to create another great city to be the center of the empire, it was unthinkable to me. I brooded in hatred. I knew despair. I was like, this right here, this is what you'll admit despairs you? You'll admit despair in this situation because the capital of Rome, the Roman capital's moving? Fuck you, dude. Like, you won't even admit that you're sad about Pandora 80% of the time.
Okay, so that we called this section Marius and Mael, but I literally have a note right here that said we could have called it Marius and Rome. I think Marius's greatest love is Rome. He's got a really interesting line here. First of all, I love this little section where he's detailing the fall of the Roman Empire. I think it's one of the most interesting of the book, honestly, because, I mean, first of all, I find that part of history a fairly interesting part of history, period.
Absolutely.
But specifically to hear it from this Immortal's perspective, whose entire identity is tied up with the Roman Empire, it was very interesting. But he's running down the changing world, especially all of the Christian influence. And he says, before Christians, you must understand that there was no religious persecution. He says everyone just accepted everyone else's faith. And like, the whole history of world religions would disagree with you a little bit there, Marius. But I mean, listen, I'm not defending, the Christian Crusades or anything, because God knows we have killed enough people in His name. But I'm just saying, every ancient pagan religion is not like purely free of bloodshed either, my friend.
I mean, look
both
at
of their own faithful and others.
Look at what happened in the Grove, bro.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I kept thinking. I was like, you were Roman and you got kidnapped by a different religion and taken up there to be sacrificed. Like, I mean, maybe they weren't persecuting you because you were a Roman pagan, but they were going to kill you in service of their god. And
they want you to kill. And they want you to kill in service of their god.
Yeah,
they want you to kill all these people.
Come on, man. My favorite, though, is he says, even the Jews, who were antisocial, were easily enfolded by Greeks or Romans. They rebelled against Rome. Rome didn't attack them. And I'm like, sir, they rebelled against Rome, who had taken over their country by force. Like, the Romans came in and took over Judea, and then the Judeans were like, hey, but no, thank you, actually. That's not, like, what are you doing? It's such a colonizer's viewpoint is my thing.
Oh, for real. For real. God, for real, yeah. Yeah. Marius has got big colonizer vibes.
I mean, later, when he's talking about the fall of Rome and who will save society, he goes, who will mind the roads and bridges?
God.
Fucking throw it away, man.
I mean, he literally goes on and on for chapters and pages about it.
Yeah, he's real depressed. But the thing that sort of like, if I was still a born again, I might say the thing that convicted me, Ashley, I thought to myself, don't I feel this way a little bit about civilization? Like when he's bemoaning, who will defend the roads and bridges? like, one of the things that makes me so anxious over our current political system is I think, well, what will the world do if the United States isn't a positive influence? And then I go, well, how often have we been a positive influence? Exactly. Like, okay, so World War II probably. We'll give them that. But then we are the only ones that use the atomic. Well, and we're the only ones that have ever used an atomic bomb.
We also dropped 2 of them.
Yeah, like nobody else ever has. Like,
yeah.
But I mean, how many times have we caused a needless coup in South America or Southeast Asia or Northeast Asia or yeah, and in doing so ended up putting someone in power that was even worse than whoever was in power before? That we ended up fighting 40 years later? I mean, that's happened quite a few times.
Yep. So much.
So, I don't know, man. Like,
we have to defend ourselves against our own weapons that we provided them.
Anyway, sometimes I think we all may be Marius in this particular aspect, but that one right there kicked me in the crotch. I was like, come on, Marius. The Jews were the problem. That's where you're gonna go. The Romans didn't do anything. I'm like,
no,
they occupied. Like, what?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. Enough of that. Let's talk about, because I think this is one of the most interesting sections of the book, Mael's injury. So they have been apart for quite a while. Avikus has been sort of following Marius from a distance and learning from him, but not speaking, which is a weird way to be, but okay, because Mael would be mad, I guess.
Exactly, and do you even want to deal with the drama? You know, like, do I want to deal with the drama from either of them? Maybe not.
No.
Maybe I can just sneakily get the information I want without having to deal with any of you 2 crazy fuckers.
So Avikus shows up, and he is clearly upset, and he's like, "You've got to come with me." And then Marius is mad and talking shit in his head because Avikus isn't going very fast to take him to wherever he's like, he's not using all of his strength, but I didn't want to say anything, so I followed him slowly as he was going. But they get there finally to, I guess it's Avikus' house at the time, and Mael is there, but is put together badly. His arms in the wrong place, and his head's backwards almost, and at first Marius isn't even sure what had happened, and finally he puts it together. He's like, "Oh, you tried to do this, huh?" Is this the first time we get in any of the Vampire Chronicles this kind of regeneration for vampires? I think so, isn't it?
Think so. It's the first time I remember it. And this is one of those sections that's kind of gruesome and like fucking gross and scary, like very creepy, awful. Like, it's written so well that I can see it happening, which is like, and hear it, Well, like,
it's also interesting to me that Marius tells Avikus, and then he does it, helps do it too. But they pull the arm and the head off. Why wouldn't they cut them off again?
Well, that's a really good question. I don't know.
Right?
I
mean, they got cut off to begin with. I don't know. I'm just... Personally, if I'm ever in a pile of parts and you're trying to put me back together,
you'd prefer
use a blade.
To have your... We'll use a blade with you, Joel. I will remember that. Noted. Don't rip my head off. Cut it off.
Yeah, go ahead and cut it off if you're going to try to put it back on. But I do like how Marius keeps telling them during this whole section, I don't have any secrets here. I'm just going on what I see before me and what makes sense in the world and what I know about things. But he also intuits it pretty correctly. And it's interesting because he has seen already at this point, like, the great web of vampires connected to one another through Akasha. And I do wonder if that didn't encourage him in what he imagined was going to happen to these parts. He talks about, I think if we just put the head in the right place, like near it, it will connect itself.
It'll grab it. The body's gonna grab that head.
Yeah, and I mean, it does. It absolutely does. But the reason is because of the blood, right? This blood is this parasitic entity that is, all it knows to do is to replicate and expand, right? And so, I mean, that's what it does. Anyway, it is fascinating, and it's one of the scenes, we joked last week that the bathtub scene with Thorne is going to be a lot better in the TV show This is one of those that's going to be maybe a lot worse in the TV show because we're going to have to actually see it.
Yeah, but my brain has seen it. I have seen this scene.
I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Fucking saw that happen. I forget that section every time. Like, I forget it, and then when I read the book, I'm always like, oh shit, I forgot about this part.
So, in this whole process of repairing Mael, which they are able to do, they put him back together just fine. But Marius has promised at some point out loud that he's going to feed him as well and give Mael his blood, which he does. He and Avikus both give Mael his blood to help heal him, and it works. But then, and again, this is one of those moments where I'm going to point some fingers at Mael, because here he is in this dire straits, literally brought back to life, and can't wait 5 minutes to point the finger at Marius and go, what about that fucking queen I saw, dude?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I saw her in your blood.
Yeah.
Like,
by the way,
how about start with thank you? How about really appreciate the resurrection?
I would
my homie.
lead with the appreciation. Yeah. Like, again, the sandwich. We like the sandwich. Give me the good news, give me the bad news, give me the good news.
Yeah, no, he just goes straight for it and immediately accusatory. And then he even amps it up. He's like, you drank her blood, haven't you?
Yeah.
You have drunk her blood. Like, and still with the religious
by proxy,
anger.
so have you. Calm down. You know, like, chill, brother.
Like, but also, here's my thing is like, can't Mael see past his own nose to realize this is the beginning of a foundation of a relationship that Marius is going to invite us in to see the king and queen? Or shit, I know she exists now. I'll try to pray to her myself. She'll invite me in, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It opens a door, and instead of peeking in it, he grabs it and throws the door the rest of the way open.
And then curses you for having built the door and the lock in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're like, stop it, homie.
Oh yeah, no. These two are made for each other. Like they're made to just harass each other and through time.
So this kind of falls apart and ends up leading to Marius's first long sleep, which always strikes me as odd because I think of that as like his whole thing. Oh, sometimes Marius will just go slumber for a century or two, and all of the people who like Marius have learned that from him, and that's a real good thing to do, you know. But like, he's 500, 600 years old at this point, and has never slept before like this. And it's only after they're attacked, the house is burned, they all have to escape to the shrine together. Or I say that, Mael doesn't come with them to the shrine. Avikus comes with Marius to the shrine. They stay there for like 6 nights before they finally get back up. And that's when he's like, you know, actually, I'm just going to sleep in this corner over here. First of all, he kills like a bunch of people. He kills like a dozen people in one night, and then he falls asleep in the corner. And
he's very full
of a motherly cuddle. I do think Marius's relationship with Akasha, which we're going to talk a little bit about specifically in our last section on this book, I think it mirrors in many ways, again, Lestat's relationship with Gabrielle. It is sexual, but it is mostly a motherly, it's a parental relationship. Those two need someone to care about them unconditionally and to be a safe refuge when the world has abandoned them, those poor terrible people, you know. I mean, like, Lestat is the cause of his own troubles, and Marius again and again is the cause of his own troubles.
Always.
And yet he retreats to Akasha, and Akasha never tells him so, right? She never says, well, you did this to your own self, so, like, no, you stay out there.
Right.
She's
well,
always
no, she doesn't
ready
say anything.
to accept. Well, but she gives him the dreams, and she lets him take her blood, and et cetera, right? So that,
no, she is.
Let's be honest, Gabrielle's not, like, super loving to Lestat either.
She's very nurturing. These are very nurturing mother figures these guys have. My God.
Oh, man. I love the scenes through this, though, while he's sleeping, where he's like, it was almost like Mael and Avikus came to me. You're like, asshole, you know how this works. Like, you've done it now several times. You could at least tell Thorne about it clearly. They did come to you and talk to you. It was almost like a dream. They came to me again. And then finally they come and they say, hey, look, Rome has really and truly fallen.
It is done, friend.
We're gone. And he's like, I know, I've been down here a half century. And they're like, no, you've been down here 200 years.
A minute. It's been a minute. It's time to get in some vampire boxes and go to a new town.
And so they do. They load up and leave for Constantinople. But even in that moment, they're like, here, let us give you our blood. He's like, no, I'll rise on my own.
I'm fine. Don't sully me with your
dramatic.
filth.
I love the trip to Constantinople. I love we only get a couple of glimpses of it, but he talks about their time on the ship. And like they'd stay in the cabin with full cups of wine, and talk and listen to the deckhands and the other people working on the ship. I love all that stuff. It's like, oh, this is the Voyage of the Demeter. If Dracula doesn't want to eat everybody on the ship,
Right? If they're chill, if the vampires are chill,
could have just been a good boat trip, man. Like you
yeah,
don't have
it could have just been fine. A little cross-Atlantic journey, but no.
I like his take on Constantinople too. Like, in spite of himself, he's impressed by it. He wants to. He
really
be
wants
mad.
to dislike it. He wants to not like it very much, very much. But he
does. Is pretty badass.
He does like a nice town.
Yeah.
He likes to live in a nice town with pretty people that have interesting thoughts. He prefers that.
Now, it's in Constantinople though that they run into their next problem, this threesome. They meet Eudoxia.
Yes.
She is a lot. I mean, from moment one.
She is a lot.
She'll always have some affection from me, specifically because of this line. She says, "What can I do," she asked Mael, "to silence you before you say something foolish again?" What can I do to silence you before you say something foolish again?
That is a really good line.
It's a perfect line for Mael, especially. Like, again, like if he just would have kept his mouth shut about the queen right after Marius had raised him, their whole relationship would have gone better. Marius might not have gone to ground for 200 years. You might got a drunk from the queen, but no, you got to fuck it up.
But no, you got to open your big stupid mouth.
So, what did you think of Eudoxia?
Oh, this is a really interesting character, and I was kind of bummed that she's not around for very long, because I feel like Anne really spends some time like telling us about her. We get an amazing physical description. I think she's beautiful with this dark black curly hair, and I'm very interested in this woman. And we know she's we can tell she's smart. We can tell she's been a vampire for a long time. She knows what the fuck she's doing. I got very excited about this character, and she doesn't hang around very long.
So the thing that struck me this time, like literally today, I was reading over this section, and I thought about the fact that I think that it's sort of like a warning to Marius. Eudoxia is an incredibly ancient vampire. Again, literally tied to the Queen Mother. And so her power is enormous. Her confidence is outstanding. She's got this whole world built around her. She is the queen of the city in many ways.
Yeah.
And is living that life that Marius imagined to live, and does again later, in Venice. But she's doing it. And yet, it doesn't work out for her in the end. And the three of them are more than she can handle in the end. And I think to myself, shouldn't you have taken this note, Marius? Like, shouldn't...
Well, I mean, this is exactly what's going to happen to him later in Venice. It's just, I mean, he
thinks she's so confident that there's nothing they can do, so she just lays it all. She's like, I'm going to take the queen. Yeah. And he's like, what are you... But she can't imagine that they would be able to overcome her, or that she wouldn't get her way in this matter. And it's the same thing with him and Santino and the Christian zealots. He's like, what?
Hubris.
Ever. Yes, hubris. Man. It's hoisted by their own petard.
Yes.
Okay. After their first interaction, though, with Eudoxia, the three of them are together, Mael and Avicus and Marius. And he's already told them previously, like, hey, you idiots, do y'all know y'all get stronger the older you get? But here, he's like, genuinely,
we've
all
got
have to train.
Toughen up. This is
right.
this is our training montage here.
We got to figure out exactly what we can do and how we can protect ourselves. Let's all do it together so we can help each other.
Yeah.
And he's such a dickhead. He goes, again, I excelled in this as in everything. I was first, Avikas second, and Mael third. That's like,
and Mael
like,
third,
just
of course.
so everybody knows.
Just so everybody knows, the pecking order here is I was the best, as always. Very much like a teacher's pet kind of vibe coming off of him, you know. Marius is just, he has to be the smartest person in the room, even if he's not. And that is a dangerous problem to have.
Yes. I heard somebody say one time that if you are always the smartest person in the room, then you need to get in different rooms. Mm-hmm. But I always heard that and thought to myself, if you're always the smartest person in the room, then you're wrong.
You're wrong. Yeah, because you're not.
You're not always
it's a good
the smartest
ambition.
person in the room.
It's a great ambition to have. I strive to be the smartest person in the room. That's why I listen to the other people in the room.
Yeah. Okay, so Eudoxia, though, has a companion, a fledgling named Zenobia, who, get this, Ashley, is a little girl. She's 15. She's a little bit better than some of the other ones, but she is only 15.
No one saw that coming.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I do find it fascinating that they basically play hot potato with her. Like, none of them want them, and all of them want. None of them want her, and all of them want her, sort of. But it's like, what is it? And again, it's like, Mael is attracted a little bit, but he's like, but what if she steals Avikas from me?
Right. What if she steals Avikas away? What if she distracts him?
And Marius is like, oh, I'd really like her, but like, I can't show her the queen and the king, and she can't be a companion because nobody's worth that. So she's sort of lost in the middle. Avikas, though, is like smitten, and he, my guess is, unlike most of Anne's vampires, Avikas does come off pretty straight here, and hanging out with Mael has left him a little wanting.
Yes. I think hanging out with Mael would leave you wanting in a lot of different ways.
That's pretty, even if you're non-discriminating. I think you're right.
Yeah.
So Avikas and Zenobia end up going together, and that is the beginning of the end for Avikas and Mael as well. Of course, we find out that Mael goes on to have a much longer-term relationship, and that works out just fine for him. It's interesting to me, in light of this section of the book, how Mael ends up with Maharet, when what he always wanted was a queen, right? And Akasha was not a queen, honestly, that was worthy of the worship and adoration that Mael would give her. But Maharet kind of is. Yeah,
it is nice.
I kind of like that happy ending for him in that way.
It is, and you want to root for him because he is an interesting character, and also we know that other characters love him, and like he's important to some of our other characters, and so to have just very conscientious relationship with Marius is so funny to me, and the fact that they just, I mean, the full on commitment to it, and he just, like, even now he's telling the story in present time, he still hates this dude this much, like. Oh, it's great. It's great.
I mean, even today, I will say Zenobia and Avikas both come up again in the final trilogy, the Prince Lestat trilogy. Avikas a little bit more so. But these, it's interesting to me to think in retrospect how she was putting a bunch of pieces on the board for her to come back to. Like, these people have, Avikas in particular has this story in this book, and then doesn't matter in a lot of the modern day things that happen after this, and yet he was there. I remember who I had. I remember all these pieces that I had, and I do think it's one of the things that I was always interested by, those early generations of vampires after Akasha and Cayman and Maharet and Makare. So the fact that we get more of those in the latter books is
I love
very
that.
rewarding,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
We are barreling into Venice here, and so I think we're we're going to wrap things up. When we next get back to it, we're going to be talking a lot about Bianca and a lot about Armand primarily. That's going to be our next relationship, is Marius and Armand, that section of time. And that'll go up to Armand's capture and removal from Venice. So that's where you're going to need to end the next time for us for our next book club episode. You got some final thoughts on this section, Ashley?
No, not really. Just Marius, why do you make things more difficult for yourself than it has to be? You know, like, you just overcomplicate things completely.
Again and again. Yes.
But I do, this section's really fun for me. I love, like you said, I love the history. I love the historic parts. I love the telling of the history. I love this. I love to hate these guys hating each other. It's very fun. Like, it's fun. And Abacus is such a good foil for, like, the two of them constantly being in conflict, and then he's like, the fuck, guys, can we not? You know, like, can we not?
Well,
it's great.
He reminds me in many ways of Thorn, which we so beloved in the opening section of this book, the little bit that we get to know about him. Like, both of Avicus is a pretty simple guy. He comes from an ancient, simple time and didn't even remember his mortal life for a lot of his vampiric life. And yet, low drama, low stress, seems to just want to get along and love people and you know, and he's like fine with the evildoer thing, like, as is Thorn. Like, yeah, of course we wouldn't kill the innocent, you know, like,
that makes
at one
sense.
point, that's one of the things that he and Mael make such a big deal about. We've got to chase these Christian vampires out of the city because they're killing sweet mortals every night, and you're like,
sweet mortals,
sweet. You're mad because they're killing sweet mortals? I mean, I know what they're meaning there, but it just strikes me as, again, like, some of her little side characters, they don't have central novels about them because they're too well balanced, I think.
Yeah, they're not chaotic enough. They're not chaotic enough, for sure.
They're not problematic enough to make a whole novel about,
No, because they're just like, somebody's got to be the straight man in this hellscape, you know?
That's it, exactly. All right. Folks, that is our second episode on Blood and Gold. Next week here on Articulate Coven, you're going to get a movie night. We'll be talking about Underworld, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks to discuss the third section of Blood and Gold, all about Marius and Armand. That's the next one.
Our murder goblin.
Yes, I'm very excited. Our sister show, Flan Again, is ongoing right now with new episodes about Fall of the House of Usher. The second one just went up for our patrons as we're recording this, and it'll be up next week for YouTube and everything. But let me tell you, that show is so much fun, and Ashley and Brett are doing an amazing job breaking it down. Genuinely.
Thanks.
Really, really love it.
We're having fun.
Yeah. Man, somebody in the comments on YouTube said, Kate Siegel and Raoul are giving me bi panic.
Bi panic. I love it. You know, everyone, the joke about everyone becoming bi because of the Mummy, the cast of the Mummy, definitely applies to most of Flanagan's work.
Well, in particular, and you guys say it, I think, in the first episode, like, this is full of beautiful and terrible people. The show is just like, everybody is. The thing that struck me the most is, and I can't remember the actress's name right now, but the person who plays Bev in Midnight Mass.
Oh, yeah,
is
Samantha
Tamerlane.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. She's Tamerlane in Fall of the House of Usher. And while she's not one of the heavily sexualized characters in the show, she's so foxy in this show at so many points. And I'm like, I'm getting palpitations over Bev Keane. This is not okay.
Yeah, it's real weird. Yeah, you're like, man, you look good in green. Ooh. Yeah, right? It's fucking weird. Like, that bitch poisoned a dog like last month. So I don't know why I think she's hot now, but here we are.
So here we are, folks. There you go. All of our stuff continues. And if you're not a patron, by the way, you can get everything that we do early and ad-free at articulatecoven.com/join. $2 or more a month gets you access to everything. Thanks to everybody who's already supporting the show there.
Yes,
we're
thank you guys.
to 40 paid members, and I think we just crossed 60 members altogether that are signed up at the free tier or above. So, yeah, very, very cool stuff. Ashley, thank you so much for breaking this book down with me. I'm excited to get to the rest of it, and I'm sure we both going to have quite a few things to say about Mr. Armand next time.
Oh, we always do. I always have thoughts on Armand.
All right. Until then, we have been your hosts. I am Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven.
Thanks for listening to The Articulate Coven. If you enjoyed the show, check out our groups on Facebook and Discord. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Or find us at articulatecoven.com and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Bye.